Alright guys, welcome to Next Gen Rugger. So obviously we're in day one of quarantine right now, and as such I'm going to have a lot more time to produce some content, and I'm assuming you guys are going to have a lot more time to consume said content. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button and the bell as well to get notified on new videos. And look guys, if you can think of any topics you'd like me to sort of discuss, just leave a comment down in the section below, and let's see if we can accommodate you. But as I said, we've got nothing but time right now, so let's go ahead and try and think of some creative content to sort of feed through to you guys. And today's topic is obviously looking at rugby in the 2020s. So yes, my top 10 predictions for the 2020s. So let's start off with the first one, the quota system. Let's start with something a bit controversial. My whole thing is, what quota system? And I think by 2029, I think the quota system is going to be completely obsolete. And the reason for that is just there's just way too much talent coming through in terms of players of colour in South Africa. You just have to look at the major schools and you can see the changes right in front of you over the last 10 years. Credit has to go to the schools. I don't think SARU or the government deserve any credit. I think it's all down to the school system. I mean, if you take a look at the younger teams like under 15, under 16, even at predominantly Afrikaans schools, you're sort of seeing a much more of a demographic mix over there. It's really exciting times ahead. And that's what I mean, is that there's wider demographics. It's appealing to more people. And I think there are very exciting times ahead for South African rugby. Prediction 2, the death of Super Rugby. Now, I think that if Super Rugby was a beloved pet, I think we'd at least have the decency to put it out of its misery. There's poor crowd attendance, the rugby's become boring, and what was once the world's premier competition, I really feel needs to be killed off once and for all. I think towards the middle of the decade it's going to happen that New Zealand, Australia, and Japanese clubs will and should form their own competition. I think South African clubs will join the Northern Hemisphere competitions. I'd like to maintain the Sanzar Lions at an international level. I think it would be quite disgusting for South Africa to join the Six Nations and make it a Seven Nations. There's just too much history in that competition, and I think the sort of Sanzar calendar with the Rugby Championship still has a lot of potential at international level, but at club level it has to be killed off. I just think it makes sense to all involved that South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia go our opposite ways, and that New Zealand and Australia help develop the game in Japan. Or the way rugby's going in Australia, maybe we can actually think of it as New Zealand and Japanese clubs helping out Australian clubs. Prediction 3, the end of New Zealand dominance. Now, I'm not saying New Zealand will not be a major power in global rugby. They always have been and always will be a major power. But what I am saying is don't expect the same 90% win rates every year to continue. I think the thing is that they're facing stiff competition in the school system from basketball, and the lure of rugby league, especially the money involved, is really turning heads. And then I also think there's a threat of an emerging superpower in rugby that's up and coming, which leads me to my fourth prediction, the rise of France. Now, French rugby reached an all-time low in 2018 when they lost to Fiji. I didn't think it could get much worse than that. But behind the scenes, the youth system has been flourishing. I mean, 2 under-20 World Cup wins in a row. Something is definitely going on over there. Now, we've also seen the emergence of players such as Intermac, Bamba, Gros, Dupont, and Vincent, and it just shows the world-class talent that's emerging. I mean, these are all young players that have a good decade left in the game. Carbonell and Jordan Joseph also have the ability to become real legends in the game. Now, the whole thing is what other talent is there that we don't know about yet? So I definitely think that France have the potential and could very well be the dominant team of this coming decade. Prediction 5, Zimbabwe emerges. Now, it might sound a bit far-fetched and crazy, but bear with me for a second. I was actually in shock to find out how many talented schoolboys are plying their trade in South Africa, and they're from Zimbabwe. Now, that actually makes sense. I mean, considering there are millions of Zimbabweans in South Africa, and many of these have access to the great facilities and coachings at our schools, but not all of them can represent the Springboks. And I think there's an opportunity here for Zimbabwean rugby. I mean, it's every kid's dream of playing international rugby or playing at a World Cup. Now, if you if you ply your trade in South Africa, you're a high-level player, and you've got a Zimbabwean passport, who knows what can happen? Now, I'm not saying they're going to be a World Cup contender or anything like that, but I certainly think that they could become a serious Tier 2 nation. Watch the space. Prediction 6, free movement. So, I think what has killed Southern Hemisphere rugby is protectionism. Now, while European clubs open their arms to all nations, the Southern Hemisphere very much continues to keep things internal. Now, the logic is that the player will choose country over money, and I think this will slowly disappear. I think we've seen it happen in New Zealand as well with the lure of the NRL. Sanzar won't embrace this until the last minute. I think they're a very stubborn group, a very stubborn association. And I think with New Zealand and Australia losing more players to league, I think there's no doubt they could be forced into changing their way of thinking. Now, with this change, I expect a new reality to set in for the national unions. And that will be privatized clubs. So, rugby's a relatively young sport professionally, guys. And being a young sport professionally means that, we could have gotten away with a lot, but it's always going to be for a short period of time. Centralized contracting with unions owning stakes in the clubs and having a say in the operations was always going to be a short-term reality. Times have to change. Now, I think the core of the financial difficulties in the game come from these issues. I mean, with private clubs, you can have deeper pockets and other clubs have to adapt or die. The private sector competition is always going to beat the public sector because there's accountability. You don't have a bailout. You don't have, protection and oversight from a union. And what ends up happening in that scenario is that it's very much sink or swim. Now, I think what will end up happening is that unions will have oversight and govern the game, and I think it will be very much like the FA does in England. But I think what will happen is that with the emergence of privatization, I think a new form of club will arise. And that leads me to prediction number 8, the birth of the super club. So with globalization will come opportunity to have the best players at the best teams. And I think business people will see the commercial opportunities and pour resources into teams creating super clubs. Think Real Madrid and Barcelona and all the rest. I think super clubs will primarily be based in Japan and Europe, with maybe a few in the USA in the next 20 years, if the game can potentially be grown there. But I think initially at the beginning, with the money that's in Japan and in Europe, I think will be the core base of the super clubs. And I think you'll have a competition, like I said before, between New Zealand, Australian and Japanese clubs, with the Japanese clubs holding most of the money and basically using transfer fees, etc., to prop up the New Zealand and Australian clubs. I just think it's going to be a natural occurrence. So, prediction number 9, the rise of the rhinos. I know I'm making some strange predictions here, guys, but a lot can change in a decade. So, a major problem in South Africa right now is abundance of talent. I mean, I think one could actually say there's just a problem that we have too much talent. So, I think Rugby League will see an opportunity in this, and it'll be a chance for them to spread the game to a new country. I think a lot more South African youngsters are going to get opportunities to play in Rugby League, especially in Australia. The NRL is an extremely strong domestic competition with a lot of money in it, and they already are looking at a lot of South African youngsters. And I think with that, we could actually see the Rhinos, the South African Rugby League team, become a much improved version of itself. Now, before you start laughing, the NRL in Australia, there's a lot of Australians playing in that league that are of Lebanese descent and are of Papua New Guinea descent, right? Now, Papua New Guinea and Lebanon both have rugby league teams that compete at the Rugby League World Cup. So don't laugh it off. I think that like I said, with the abundance of talent we're producing, a lot of these kids will end up going playing rugby league in Australia, and I think that'll prop up the Rhinos. So I think it could be an interesting scenario having a semi-decent rugby league team in South Africa. I don't think rugby league will ever be a major sport in South Africa, and I don't think the Rhinos will ever come close to the Kangaroos, the Australian team. I mean, they are the All Blacks times 10 in rugby league, basically. They just don't lose. So, but it will still be, I still think it'll be very interesting. If they intend to spread the game, rugby league, I think South Africa is a very interesting market for them. Then my final prediction, a push to the USA. So, I think we can all agree. I mean, for many years, rugby's tried to make inroads into America, and there hasn't been a lot of success with that regard. Now, I expect a Rugby World Cup to be awarded to the USA, and it's going to basically be a major push by the RB to crack the USA market. I'm not sure if the 2027 World Cup hosts have been announced, but I do expect 2027 or 2031 to be awarded to the USA. I think the RB is going to basically look at the success of Japan and what it did for the country there and think they can transplant that to the USA. So I definitely do expect a Rugby World Cup to be awarded to the USA sooner than later. But the reality is rugby will never replace football in the States. It's just never going to happen. American football's too entrenched and it's way, way, way ahead of rugby. But even being a poor cousin to the NFL can actually reap its own benefits. Who knows? Maybe that strategy could end up paying off in the 2030s. But that's what we can discuss in 2029, I think. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Like I said, if you got any requests for a video or a topic you'd like me to sort of discuss a bit further, just leave a comment down below. And like I said, I'll be bringing you guys a lot more content. We can call it quarantine content, I suppose, for the next couple of weeks. But besides that, have a great quarantine. Spend the time with loved ones, learn a new skill, improve yourself somehow. Just try not to go completely mad. Have a great day further, guys. Cheers, bye.